When Victor Wembanyama stepped back onto the court Saturday night after missing 12 games with that calf strain, it wasn't just about medical clearance or getting back into game shape. Sure, the Spurs medical staff had given him the green light, and yes, the timing aligned perfectly with their NBA Cup semifinal against the Thunder. But if you dig deeper into why he chose this exact moment to return, you start to understand something profound about what's happening in San Antonio and what it means for the entire league moving forward into next season. The calf injury happened back on November 14th against Golden State, and from that moment forward, the narrative became about how long he'd be out and what it meant for the Spurs' playoff chances. The initial timeline suggested 2 to 3 weeks, but the organization stayed intentionally vague about specifics because they learned their lesson from last season's deep vein thrombosis diagnosis. They weren't going to rush their franchise cornerstone back for any reason other than being absolutely certain he was ready. That caution makes sense when you're protecting a generational talent whose career could span the next 15 years. But here's what the media coverage missed during those 4 weeks of absence. The Spurs went 9-3 without him. That's not a team desperately treading water until their star returns. That's a legitimate contender proving their depth and system work regardless of who's available. The timing of his return tells the real story about what's motivating Wembanyama and what the Spurs are building toward. He could have waited another week or two, gotten himself to 95% instead of the estimated 85% he probably was at on Saturday night. The regular season would still be there, and the Spurs had already shown they could maintain their position in the Western Conference without him. But this wasn't about regular season positioning or preserving his body for April and May. This was about sending a message to his teammates, to the league, and to himself about what he's becoming as a leader and what this franchise is capable of achieving together. When you see him playing just 21 minutes off the bench and still finishing plus 21 while the team was minus 23 when he sat, you understand that his presence transcends statistics and performance metrics. The prize money for winning the NBA Cup sits at over $500,000 per player, and while that's meaningful even for stars making tens of millions annually, it's genuinely life-changing for guys on minimum contracts or two-way deals. Wembanyama understood that his return wasn't just about his own stats or proving he could beat the Thunder, it was about giving his teammates, especially the younger players and role guys who work just as hard but don't get the same financial security, a legitimate shot at winning that money. When Keldon Johnson said after they beat Denver to clinch their quarterfinal spot that he'd run through a wall for $500,000, he wasn't exaggerating. That kind of motivation creates intensity and cohesion that carries over into the regular season and playoffs. Wembanyama coming back for this game demonstrated that he values his teammates' financial well-being and understands his role as the franchise cornerstone extends beyond just playing basketball. But there's something even deeper happening here that connects to the Spurs' future in the 2025 to 2026 season. Mitch Johnson, who took over as head coach this year after Greg Popovich's retirement, has been building a culture where everyone matters and everyone contributes. That philosophy requires buy-in from the star player, the guy who could reasonably say he's above the system and demands special treatment. Instead, Wembanyama has embraced being coachable, accountable, and willing to do whatever helps the team win. Johnson said after the Thunder game that they recognize Victor as the face of the franchise, but he's not the puzzle by himself and he doesn't want to be. That mindset is rare among 21-year-old superstars who are being told daily that they're the next face of the league. Most young stars in his position become obsessed with individual accolades and statistical achievements, but Wembanyama seems genuinely more interested in winning championships and building something sustainable. The impact on the NBA landscape is already becoming visible, even though we're not even halfway through this season. When you see Oklahoma City coming into that semifinal with a 24-1 record and a 16-game winning streak, and then watch them lose to a Spurs team that just got their best player back from injury playing limited minutes, that should terrify the rest of the Western Conference. The Thunder are supposed to be the prohibitive favorites to win the title this year with their depth and two-way excellence, but they couldn't handle what San Antonio threw at them when it mattered. That result isn't a fluke or lucky bounce, it's evidence that the Spurs' young core is maturing faster than anyone anticipated, and their ceiling with everyone healthy is legitimately championship caliber right now, not 2 or 3 years from now. Looking ahead to next season, the convergence of factors working in San Antonio's favor becomes almost overwhelming when you list them out honestly. Wembanyama will enter his 3rd season coming off a full healthy offseason, where he can add strength, refine his offensive repertoire, and build chemistry with teammates in ways that weren't possible last summer during his recovery. The statistical progression we've seen from players in similar situations suggests he could average close to 30 points with 13 rebounds and 4 blocks while maintaining his 3-point shooting efficiency. Those numbers would put him squarely in MVP consideration regardless of team success. But when you factor in that the Spurs should be a top 4 seed in the West, he becomes the frontrunner for that award. De'Aaron Fox's presence as the veteran floor general changes everything about how this team can operate offensively. Before the trade that brought him over from Sacramento last February, the Spurs lacked someone who could consistently create quality shots for himself and others in clutch situations. Fox has shown this season that he's not just filling that role adequately, but excelling at it, averaging over 23 points with stellar efficiency, while his 3-point shooting has reached career best levels. The chemistry between Fox and the younger players like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper has developed naturally because Fox genuinely wants to help them succeed rather than viewing them as threats to his touches or role. That unselfishness from a veteran all-star sets the tone for the entire roster and creates an environment where young players develop faster because they're not fighting for opportunities or playing scared. Castle winning Rookie of the Year last season and then taking another leap forward in his sophomore campaign demonstrates the kind of player development infrastructure the Spurs have maintained even through their coaching transition. He's currently averaging over 18 points with 6 rebounds and and nearly 7 assists, while showing significant improvement as both a shooter and decision-maker. The defensive tenacity that earned him recognition as a rookie has only intensified, making him capable of guarding the opposition's best perimeter player on any given night. When you pair Castle's two-way excellence with Harper's methodical shot creation and Fox's veteran savvy, you get a backcourt rotation that can match up with anyone in the league across different styles and matchups. Harper's development trajectory is particularly intriguing heading into next season because he's dealt with injury issues this year that have limited his minutes and consistency. The second overall pick from last year's draft arrived with enormous expectations as a 6'5" guard with a nearly 7-foot wingspan who can create his own shot, facilitate for others, and defend multiple positions. The flashes of brilliance we've seen when healthy suggest he has legitimate all-star potential once he puts together a full, healthy season. By the time next season begins, Harper will have accumulated enough NBA experience to understand what works at this level while still being young enough to continue developing physically and mentally. The partnership between Harper, Castle, and Fox in the backcourt gives the Spurs multiple options for how to attack different defensive schemes and personnel groups. The bench depth that's emerged during Wembanyama's absence provides another compelling reason to believe next season represents a legitimate championship window rather than just continued development. Role players like Devin Vassell when healthy, Harrison Barnes as the veteran stabilizer, and younger pieces like Carter Bryant who can space the floor and guard multiple positions have created a 10-man rotation capable of competing with any team's second unit. Championship teams aren't built solely on star power but on cohesive units where everyone understands their role and executes consistently. The Spurs have always excelled at development and culture, and you can see those organizational principles manifesting in how quickly young players adapt and contribute winning basketball. The financial flexibility heading into next season might be the most underrated advantage the Spurs possess in their quest for sustained contention. Wembanyama remains on his rookie-scale contract, earning just over $13 million, which represents arguably the greatest value proposition in professional sports currently. Fox's extension signed this past summer secures him through the 2029-30 season at a 30% max salary that actually provides value relative to his production and importance. Castle and Harper are both on rookie deals that won't require extensions for several years, giving the front office flexibility to be aggressive in free agency or trades without compromising future cap space. Many contending teams face second apron tax restrictions that severely limit roster construction options, but San Antonio can operate creatively and opportunistically when the right pieces become available. What makes Wembanyama's return so significant for the league's competitive balance is that it accelerates a timeline everyone assumed would take longer to materialize. Conventional wisdom suggested the Spurs wouldn't be legitimate contenders until the 2026 or 2027 season after Wembanyama had matured physically and the young core had accumulated playoff experience, but watching them beat the Thunder convincingly with their best player coming off the bench and playing limited minutes suggests that conventional wisdom might be wildly conservative. The combination of Wembanyama's two-way dominance with multiple shot creators and a defensive system that generates turnovers and transition opportunities makes them dangerous right now, not eventually. The rest of the league has been put on notice that the Spurs are back ahead of schedule. Wembanyama returning for that semi-final wasn't just about one game or one tournament, it was about establishing identity and setting expectations for what comes next. The 2025-2026 season will be remembered as the year San Antonio fully returned to championship contention, and Saturday night's performance provided the blueprint for how they plan to get there. The future isn't approaching gradually for the Spurs. It arrived the moment Wembanyama checked into that game and reminded everyone watching that greatness can't be postponed or denied when talent meets opportunity and leadership.